Key Israel lobby senator calls for U.S. military strikes on Syria. Said here they called on Obama to attack Syrian airfields, airplanes, and massed artillery. So this influential chairman is Carl Levin, the Democrat from Michigan. He returned from a fact-finding trip to the Middle East, although I don't think he was really looking for facts. He says he also expressed support for arming the terrorists fighting against Assad. Increased military pressure on Assad is the only way to achieve a negotiated settlement in Syria, which in turn is needed to restore stability to a region that certainly doesn't need any more instability. So, Hezbollah holds Israel responsible for Beirut bombing. So we covered this before, but I have some more news updates on that. They said the blast is part of an ongoing targeting of the resistance, and the beneficiary of the blast is the system that serves the Israeli project, says Hezbollah's deputy general. So he says they were behind the July 9th bombing, which injured dozens of people in the southern suburb of Beirut. So speaking on the anniversary of the 2006 war between Lebanon and Israel, the Sheikh said Israel and groups working to incite Sunni-Shia strife are responsible for the massive bomb attack. The CIA warned Lebanon that Al-Qaeda was planning an attack in Beirut. Translated from Europa Press, says the CIA warned Lebanese security agencies that the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda was planning an attack in the neighborhood in Beirut just 2 days before the attack executed Tuesday in the area, considered a stronghold of Shiite Hezbollah party militia, which left about 50 wounded. It says based on the information published by the Lebanese newspaper Al-Akhbar, a member of the CIA in the Arab country gave intelligence data security forces that contained sensitive information on the matter. The group, which was presented as the 313 Brigade, shares a name with the military unit of Al-Qaeda operating in Pakistan and Afghanistan, but for the moment it is unclear whether it is the same militia. So they're saying that the Syrian rebel brigade claimed responsibility for the attacks. So the editor's note, which is important to note, it says what caught his attention was this 313 Brigade that just happened to share the name of the Al-Qaeda outfit operating out of Pakistan and Afghanistan, the offshoot of this Huji, so I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but it was established by this Kashmiri who was an active participant in Zbigniew Brzezinski's Afghan Mujahideen during the 1980s Soviet-Afghan War, which leads the editor to believe that this Kashmiri was likely trained by the CIA and Special Operation Forces. He was reportedly killed in 2011 in Pakistan by a drone strike, but no one really knows whether he's dead or alive. So this is interesting to note as well. Says here whether you can prove or not that this is the same brigade. Says there's reports saying that Western intelligence agencies, CIA, MI6, all of them are transporting foreign fighters from Afghanistan and North Waziristan and Pakistan to Turkey, where the militants are basically given weapons which have coverage, training, and conduct combat missions in Syria, led by U.S., Qatar, and Pakistan special forces. So with the CIA, other intelligence agencies basically have a direct history with Al-Qaeda, it's plausible that the Syrian rebel 313 Brigade that carried out this attack in Lebanon that, quote, CIA warned them about is an assembly of Al-Qaeda operatives from Pakistan's 313 Brigade. Dual bombs target Hezbollah's stronghold, so again, July 10th. So another bombing. No story, but definitely pictures. Israel shores up Golan Force with eye on Hezbollah, sees Syrian war eventually spilling over. So it says here, though, Israeli officials concede that at the present time, the situation in the Syrian portion of the Golan Heights isn't really threatening to them. The influx of Israeli tanks along the frontier is in anticipation of a spillover. Specifically, the Israeli vision is that Hezbollah fighters who have joined Syria's civil war on the side of the government will eventually cross the ceasefire line into the Israeli-occupied portion of the heights. So far, they've been occupied fighting the Sunni Islamist factions along the Lebanese border. Hezbollah's leadership has presented that as their goal, basically to attack Israel, but this may have been to sell the Syrian intervention to his group, as many in the Lebanese militia are said to be concerned that the Syrian war will distract them from the force's ability to thwart Israeli invasions of southern Lebanon. So again, this creates the Sunni, basically sectarian strife or sectarian war. Makes Lebanon more vulnerable, and it makes them appear in Western eyes as being tied to Syria, thus Iran and the whole of Shias. But then you have this Egypt card. Like I said before, the whole thing with Egypt, I think, had to do with bringing down Syria. So Egypt junta thinks Israeli okay to widen the Sinai offensive. So now all of a sudden you have this Sinai conflict going on, right? Says here that Egypt's new military junta has reportedly contacted the Israeli government to request permission to launch a broader offensive against the Sinai Peninsula. Per Camp David Accords, all military ops in the Sinai must be approved by Israel. It says the military anticipated Sinai is the hotspot ahead of the coup or regime change, and deployed tanks along the border with the Gaza Strip to prevent Hamas from deploying fighters in support of the ousted government. The new regime is hostile, has a hostile position towards the former Mubarak government, but Morzai's ousted government, by contrast, was ideologically supportive of Hamas and had even convinced the faction to distance itself from Syria and Iran in favor of the new Sunni Islamist bloc of allies. IDF builds marine obstacle in Red Sea. The military speeds up Hourglass project to boost Israel-Egypt border amid rising concerns from Sinai chaos. Obstacle to foil breach attempts by divers and jet skis. So kind of like the attack boats, the Iranian attack boats. U.S. sends warships near Egypt after a coup. So they've sent them F-16s, or at least they're on the way. The U.S. Navy has ordered 2 amphibious assault ships to move to the coast of Egypt amid the North African country's post-coup violence. So again, maybe that's the thing, they keep calling it a coup, but maybe it really was just organized regime change and by the West. And now they're going back there to probably aid their own little private army that they have. Because me personally, I don't think it's the Egyptian People's Army. Egypt junta encouraged as U.S. dubs ousted government undemocratic. So Congress mulls special coup waiver for Egypt. Under U.S. law, the government is obliged to suspend all aid to a nation in the event of a military coup, which is why the Obama regime has been desperate to avoid using the word to describe last week's military takeover in Egypt. Instead, they continue to speak supportively of the new regime while lashing to ousted elected government as undemocratic. So it's just another way, too, of just turning a blind eye to what's going on, like in Bahrain and that. When they want to take down governments and create the whole region to be unstable or destabilize it, create refugees, exploit resources, then they do what they're doing in Syria or Libya. But I personally, no matter all these reports are kind of conflicting with each other, I think a part of it was to kind of create more destabilization. Turkey's Erdogan slams military coup in Egypt as illegitimate. So he says here that every military coup, regardless of its target, country, and reason, is the murder of the democracy, people, and the future of the country. Washington vilified on both sides of Egypt's divide. And I like the sign, "Your Obama is supporting terrorism," says a protester. I mentioned this too in previous videos. There's also the goal of creating American hate, anti-American sentiment. So it's another thing to throw in there why they do these things. But I don't have all the answers. But yeah, so it's funny that they say here, no matter what side you talk to in Egypt, where people have been polarized by a violent political crisis, the U.S. president is cast as the villain. Maybe they're just wising up, and maybe they're realizing that they're just being played like pawns, right? Go out there and revolt, and then they act like they get their new leadership, and they don't. New constitution, which was probably written by the Rand Corporation. All right, as far as public sentiment, public esteem for military still high. Can you believe this? So clergy in the middle, lawyers at the bottom. Americans continue to hold the military in high regard, with more than 3/4 of the U.S. adults, 78%, saying that members of the armed services contribute a lot to society's well-being. That's a modest decline from 84% 4 years ago. Can't believe it's that high to begin with. But the military still tops the list of the 10 occupational groups, followed closely by, of course, teachers that keep it going, medical doctors, scientists, and engineers. So, as far as the least amount of support, lawyers, business executives, that's interesting, journalists, artists, clergy. You think that journalists and artists would be at the bottom, and even some of clergy, but of course you have neoconservatism and that Judeo-Christianity, and they push what they got to push. If you're new, this is my website, Global Government News, or GGNonline.com. I usually post links. I'm going to stop that until further notice. That's kind of the big announcements as far as changes to GGN. Reasons being, it's just, I took almost 9 articles, just random, and tried to did a Google search, and I found them. So I came up with a number of something like 840,000, almost a million clicks, and I basically burnt out my right hand, so I have to use both and switch off because it starts to hurt. So, and I think it's due to all these links. So, you know, just, I mean, these videos are pretty much free. So, you know, just take the time, look up the headline, and it'll help me immensely to be able to keep my wrist from getting any worse, man. I tell you, I mean, I do the carpal tunnel exercises and all that, but wear the braces. What is your favorite GGN topic? I'm going to post a new poll probably next week. So far, or actually it's closed, but 52% says eugenics and social engineering news, followed by 33% war on terror, liberty, sovereignty, followed by surveillance, 8%, and 5% other, which is probably the economy. So, all right, new front opens in Syria as rebels say Al-Qaeda attack means all-out war. So get this, Syrian rebels said on Friday the assassination of one of their top commanders by Al-Qaeda-linked militants was tantamount to a declaration of war. So there you go. Pakistan Taliban sets up base in Syria. The Pakistan Taliban have visited Syria to set up a base and to assess the needs of the jihad. So, assistant of ex-Afghan fighters of the Middle Eastern origin who have moved to Syria in recent years. Go figure, right? We're just making that connection. The CIA. Congress rejects Obama and McCain's plan to arm terrorist insurgents in Syria. They delivered a possible death blow to the Bilderberg and CFR plans to fund and send weaponry to foreign Islamic terrorist mercenaries in Syria. Iran and Turkey call for Ramadan ceasefire in Syria. So that's interesting, right? Ceasefire. Come on, guys. Well, last time they did it, back in 2012 in October, they basically blew up a bunch of cars and people and stuff. So they broke it, right? Actually, I looked at it in the article today. It said that the opposition wants a ceasefire, and the Syrian government acknowledged it and did it. And then, of course, the Syrian car bomb rocks Damascus despite holiday truce. But then you have Syrian militants besiege Aleppo during Holy Ramadan. So, and we just covered about this. They're having protests and stuff like that. And I think they even opened fire on them. The people in Aleppo, I mean, they're sieged. They don't have fuel and food and water and stuff, medical supplies. Zionist settlers and rabbis storm Al-Aqsa Mosque on the first day of Ramadan. So dozens of Zionists stormed the mosque fields on Wednesday, which marked the first day of Ramadan. They're called, 100 Israeli extremists. And keep moving fast here. Next Indo-Pak conflict could be in Afghanistan. So says Afghanistan is going to be a mess after we leave. India's equity, basically their money and all that, is invested now deeply engaged in Afghanistan, and danger is the next frontier of the India-Pak conflict that's going to be in Afghanistan. U.S. now plans long-term military presence in Afghanistan. So we're not really shocked by this, of course, but they want to keep U.S. troop presence beyond the 2014 deadline. And this has nothing to do with individual sovereign states. This has to do with business interests. This has to do with the East trading bloc competing with the West trading bloc. This is competition in the trading blocs. Basically making sure that China doesn't get in there and start having influence. This is what's going on with the Gwadar port in Pakistan. It says here, UK military spending to be overtaken by India. The size of Britain's military budget is set to be surpassed by India in the next few years. Then Saudi Arabia targeting Iran and Israel with ballistic missiles. So that kind of makes sense, though, because it almost seems like, you talk about regime change and possible destabilization going on in Saudi Arabia, especially with the king, supposedly clinically dead. Who knows what's going to happen? They could be completely anti-Israel, so then maybe that's why they have it towards them. Also, Israel can blackmail them if they don't strike Iran. If they carry out a strike, says you better strike them too, and then so that would be my reasoning. Iraq carnage: 96 killed and 191 wounded. Man, that's insane, dude. They said they were just sitting down to a meal. Of course, you had Ramadan too. Dozens of protests in Bahrain against torturing detainees. If you go to this website, you can actually find the pictures of it. British MP attacked for questioning Israeli treatment of Palestinians. On the assumption of the 20th century will include the Holocaust, will he give me an assurance that the life of Palestinians since 1948 will be given equal attention? Asked Russell. He says his own party members lashed out at him for the comment. So it says here, Gavin Stoller, a liberal Democrat Friends of Israel, said Bob Russell's a fringe, marginal voice in the community. All parties have them, sadly. So, yeah, it's very few people that actually have the cojones to stand up, not be politically correct. U.S. Marine Force in Darwin, Australia, boost to 1,000 next year. Ultimate to 2200, granting a full Marine Expeditionary Unit and effective base of operations. Again, a buffer between the two trading blocks. Russia-China joint naval exercise begins in Sea of Japan. It's to send a message to Japan. Again, trading blocks. Japanese public moods rebounding. Abe highly popular. Surprise, China and South Korea very negative towards Japan. And it's a good place to stop. This is GGN and I'm Darko. Thank you.